This is Total Star. We play feel-good music for Costa Calada and we keep in touch with everything that's important for you here in your local area as well. And I am really pleased to say that I am joined by an author today. Yes, David Wright has written a couple of books that you can find on Amazon, one entitled Moving to Spain, one Finding Work in Spain. And he joins me this morning to have a chat and share his tips on how do you move to Spain. So very good morning to David. How are you?
Hi James, I'm fine, thanks.
That's good. So you've 18 years you've lived over here now.
Yeah, it's gone quick. I can't believe it myself sometimes. So yeah, this is this July is going to be 18 and a half years. July I've been here now. So and married to a Spanish girl now for the last 9 years. So all changed.
That's really good. So what was the original draw? Was it the weather, the having the afternoon siesta, or was it just wanting to be over here with the relaxed feel that we all enjoy?
Well, working in the UK, I'm from Brighton myself on the south coast, and worked as a carpenter and builder. And you can imagine lovely weather on the seafront in the summer, but the summer's about 3 or 4 weeks in Brighton. So, you know, the working with the rain dripping down your neck and your tools wet through, that didn't appeal to me until I was retired. So I said, no, I'm off to the sun. And Spain sort of had that draw on me, you know.
Which year had 3 or 4 weeks of summer in Brighton?
Yeah. It was either too hot or too windy on Brighton or too wet, you know. But when you're working as a carpenter, and also I worked on the pier in Brighton, I was the maintenance manager there for 8 years, so it was a great place to work, but not so nice in November, December when you got snow running down your neck, you know.
And I should think working with wood, even if it's raining, because wood just swells, and as soon as it gets a little bit damp, it can't be the easiest thing to work with.
Yeah, and being dark at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon doesn't help either.
No, that's true. So you're a carpenter. Did you bring your skills over here, and are you making use of them?
Yeah, I was trained in the UK as a cabinet maker, but went into the building trade and a carpenter, and then I came here to Spain. I actually came here for a week to look for work, and on the last day, the very last day, I was offered a job for a local business here, a local English-run business working for Spanish people as a bricklayer's labourer, with the idea that if I was any good, I could carry on. They were looking for a carpenter in the near future, so that's how I started, and I started working as a carpenter for this company to begin with.
So 1 week has led to over 18 years. That's pretty good. I see that you've written a couple of books, so you've obviously gained a lot of experience and loads of contacts during your time here.
Yeah, well, when I set up on my own as a self-employed carpenter after a couple of years here, and, you know, lots of people asked me questions back in the UK and what I did and how you go about it. And I thought, well, I keep telling everybody this, the best way is to get it down on paper. And I decided to write a book. And somebody said to me, well, why not put the book on the internet? And so in the end, I put it towards Amazon, and they published both of my books on Amazon and Kindle, and on some devices it's a free download on Kindle depending on which device you got. So yeah, the books are there for people, and because they're digital books, I can update them regularly, which makes it quite handy for the new information as well.
I was going to say, because it's not just a case of the legislation as to when you move over here, it's everything that changes. So yeah, having it as a Kindle digital format, that's really good. I would think that Brexit has probably had quite a big impact in that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some new information on Brexit that I've got to update to the book very, very soon, but I'm very lucky. I've got a very good contact here that was originally my accountant when I first moved here, that's become good friends for me over the 18 years, and he a couple of years ago he was made the honorary British consulate of Almeria, so a very handy guy to know, and I get a lot of information and advice from him which I pass on to my members.
That's really good. So 2 books, one of them's called Moving to Spain, one of them's called Finding Work in Spain.
The first book is really more about my life here and struggles and things that I've done here, with a lot of tips and links into the book. But the other one was because a lot of people ask me about work. Everyone's saying, how can I get work? How can I find work? So I decided to put down how I found work, things I did when I came here, the mistakes I made, and also the links that I use and the Spanish people use here that the British people don't often think about. So places where you can get work here through different contacts, you know. So I put that all in the book.
That's really good, David. David. A lot of information there. I tell you what, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions on Brexit. First of all, though, we'll play you a bit of Calvin Harris on Total Stuck.
James Denmead on the radio.
We are also talking to David Wright this morning with a lot of his advice on how do you move to Spain and how you work here in Spain. He mentioned Brexit a little earlier on, David. What are the biggest changes that Brexit has made?
Yeah, well, really, there's quite a lot of changes, but for people that are thinking of, people say you can't move to Spain anymore, but that's not true. British people can still come to Spain with a basic passport, but if you want to stay here in Spain for more than 30 days, then there's the 180-day rule where, people can come here for 3 months at a time without being tax resident. If they want to stay more than 3 months in any 180-day period, then they need to apply to be tax resident and apply for residency. And quite recently, with the Brexit and everything, these new rules are coming quite strictly enforced now. So you're going to have to be showing proof of income, which has jumped dramatically. It used to be around 5,000 euros per person as proof of income in a bank in Spain or the UK. Well, now you apply for this in your country of residence, so that would be in England for the British people, and they're going to have to show proof of income of around 27 to 30,000 in a bank for the first person, so say like the husband, and then the wife or second partner will have to show proof of income of around 6 to 7,000. So a major jump there, and also both parties will need to show proof of a year's paid up in full medical cover.
And that's a big thing, isn't it, over here with the medical cover? Because we all become complacent that we've got the NHS back home, but here it's a completely different story, isn't it?
Yeah, when I first came here, I applied for self-employed autonomo here, and that was included in the residency and my autonomo, and also I was paying into the social security, so I had the health cover, and I've still got that, so that's brilliant. But now for people coming here, that is a major thing to get that. You're going to have to pay for it, and a lot of companies are cashing in on that fact and also charging a lot of money, so it has made things a lot more difficult. But the amount has really has made a big difference for people here that are thinking of coming here. To find 30,000 for somebody and then 7,000 for the second person, that's going to put away a lot of people's dreams for some time, I think.
It will be that's quite a bit of saving for some people to just enjoy the lifestyle that we've got. Once you're over here, are there any restrictions on being able to get employment? What kind of employment is around here? Are there the normal kind of office jobs, English based over here, or is it manual work, bar work?
Well, if you've got residency here, there is work here. People often say to me, there's no work in Spain, you shouldn't say this to people. Look, there's a crisis all over the world at the moment, and it's difficult with the virus and the restrictions, I know. But just last week on one of my podcast shows, I interviewed a British guy here that's in Madrid, and he went out, put his CV out, he put leaflets indoors, and he's a tree surgeon, and he thought he wouldn't be able to get a job here, and he doesn't speak very good Spanish. And he got a call from somebody, the Parks and Gardens people in Madrid, and they took him on for an interview, all in Spanish, which he managed to get through, and they offered him a job. So he's got a 3-month contract job here, and he's absolutely chuffed to bits. And that was just a couple of weeks ago with everything that's gone on here. So there is work here if you put in the effort,
It's like anywhere, I guess. If you go and search for it, then you can find it. And I guess a tree over here is the same as a tree in back home. You're a builder by trade, so obviously there's differences with legislation on building regs and things like that over here. But labouring kind of jobs and things like that, I guess it's much the same, isn't it? Especially with the number of expats that we've got joining us now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, the thing is, it's like anywhere. I always say to people, if you're a Chinaman and you go to London looking for work and you can't speak English, what sort of job are you going to get? And that's pretty much the same in Spain. If you can't speak the language, then you're really limiting yourself, not just the potential of earnings, because you're only going to be working for British people if you can't speak the language. So, learn the language even before you come here, and it opens up a whole new world, really, because you're going to be competing with work here for both the British and the Spanish people. But if you can only speak one language, then that's going to be doubly as hard, so you're limiting yourself. So really learning to speak the language, people think, I learn when I get there, but it's not easy. you know, and you know, you do need to put in the effort, and it's going to help you so much. People don't realise how much difference it makes if you can learn the language when you're looking for work.
I would love to know more about how to learn the language, David, so stay there. I tell you what, we'll come back to you after your news at 11. 20 past 11 on a Saturday morning. You're tuned to Total Star. This is James Denmead, and I have been talking to David Wright, who's been sharing some of his tips about living and working here in Spain. Earlier on, he mentioned that it's probably a good idea if you're looking for work to learn the language. Now, David, have you got any tips? Because learning a new language isn't easy, is it?
No, it's not easy, and I mean, I think I speak pretty good Spanish now. I don't write it very well, but my Spanish wife would probably tell you my Spanish is rubbish, but you know, I can hold a conversation on the telephone in Spanish. That's quite good. But I started classes when I came here, and you know, I had to learn. I was going self-employed as a carpenter, and I wanted to order my own materials and stuff, so I went to a local school, sat down in a class, and the first day I was there, we were learning the verbs to eat. That's comer, comáis, comemos, comer. And I went, well, hang on a minute. And the teacher said, what's the matter? You know, how long is this going to take? And he sort of looked at me and laughed, and he said, you're joking, it's going to take you years. I said, no, I need to learn Spanish next week, you know. And he thought I was crazy. And I said, listen, I've got an idea. We had private lessons. I paid a little bit extra and had private lessons. And I said, I remember when I was a kid back in the UK, I started learning French, and my French teacher did this, so let's try it. You're him being the teacher, you're the shop owner. I come into the shop and I ask you for some wood, and you say, what do you want? Hello, how are you? Good morning, this sort of thing. I want a piece of wood. How long? How high? How wide? What colour? Words that I'm going to use for my work. And he thought that was a good idea. So one day he'd be the owner of a wood shop. The next day it would be a DIY shop asking for screws and nails and hammers. And I learnt these words, and then the very next day, I went out and used what I just learnt. So for me, that was really fast and really handy. And the more I used these words in the context, in the shop, the more it helped me with my business, and the more it stuck in my brain, you know?
It's the difference between learning the language and learning to speak the language, isn't it? Because you only need to be able to talk and understand people talking. You don't need the full grammar that we're all taught at school with exams and things, and the correct verbs and everything like that. If you can learn the communication in the language, that's just what you need, I guess.
Yeah, with the Spanish verbs, they're a nightmare. You know, I mean, you say to eat. In England, we say to eat. But in Spain, it's I have eaten, you have eaten, she's eaten. It's masculine and feminine, past, present and future tense. It's a bit of a nightmare. So, you know, if you can just say the verb to eat and then follow it with some other words, pretty much 9 times out of 10, they're going to understand what you're talking about, you know?
So the next thing, moving on about learning the language so you can communicate to people, what about if you are moving over here? You've obviously got lots of paperwork, loads of legal forms. You see a solicitor or go down to the town hall to read things about your area and the property that you've been looking at. Is there help over there for understanding that type of written?
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, when I first came here, I paid a lot of people a lot of money to do these things for me because my Spanish was very basic. So if you don't speak Spanish, that's going to cost you more money to start with, and you've got to get these papers and forms filled in correctly the first time round. You can't afford to make mistakes on these are important things to get right. So if you can't speak the language, you have to pay someone to go with you and do it for you, you know?
Yeah, and all of that help is available, but obviously it comes out of your wallet, doesn't it?
Sure. To give you an idea, the first year I was here, I had to make a will, and I paid a company here to take me to a place to make the will and then go back a few days later. And I paid about €350 back then, which was a lot of money back then, still is, to doing a will. And a couple of years ago, I had to make a new will here with my Spanish wife, and I went into the local notary, and he typed it all up for me. He said, go and have a coffee, come back in an hour. I came back in an hour, it was all done. It cost me €48. So a big difference if you can speak the language.
So in summary, learn the language and you can save yourself a little bit of money. We'll be talking more to David and sharing some more of his tips very soon here on Total Star. First up, though, got some Becky Hill for you. You're tuned to Total Star. My name's James. If you're tuning in looking for radio bloopers, our standard feature that we do on a Saturday round about this time, I've moved it this week only. Yeah, it's going to come up round about 20 past 12, something round about there, so stick around. The reason for it is because I'm talking to David Wright this morning, and he's sharing some of his tips on moving and working and living here in Spain. He's just down the road from us here at Costa Calada. He's from Almeria. He came here for a week. And David, did you do much research into different areas and what works best for you? Because every area around Spain is very different, isn't it?
Yeah, there's quite a big difference, and I've been lucky enough with being married to a Spanish girl that has travelled around Spain a lot. We've done quite a lot of travelling together, so I've seen the different areas of Spain. I've travelled pretty much all over Spain in the last 18 years, and there is a big difference. But when I first came here, I wanted the beach, I wanted the sun, and that's where I moved to. But there wasn't 18 years ago. There wasn't Facebook and the online help that you can get that's there today. That's basically why I did my books and my groups. But when I came here, it was a bit of potluck, really. I wanted to go somewhere that was near an airport, that was near the beach and had plenty of sun. But I didn't really want to go to Benidorm because I was there when I was a young kid on holidays, and although it was lovely there, it wasn't really for me. I wanted something different, and it was difficult to do the research back in the UK other than go to the local hotel shows that they had on every Sunday back then for selling properties to people.
So when you're moving over here, obviously you don't need to jump straight in. There's hotels around which you can stay. Obviously they're a little bit costly. Is it the same as back home where you can go and rent a villa for a month, 2 months, something like that, and just see if you fit in, see if the lifestyle is for you and you like that area?
Well, I always say, I think what I did, and I'm biased, I think what I did was correct. I knew where I wanted to go, and when I went there, I liked the place very much, and I decided rather than buy a place, I'll rent for 6 months, and it ended up being 10 months. I rented a place, which people say is dead money, but after about 4 or 5 months, we realised that the hotel behind us was starting to open up in the summer months, early in the morning, so you got the banging and the kitchen noise and the lorries there, and I thought, God, I don't want to live here, it's too noisy. And I ended up buying a little bit further down the road an absolutely beautiful place that I didn't think of when I first came here. So if I'd jumped in and bought a place in that place that I loved when I first came here, I would have been stuck there for some time and difficult to move on. So I always say rent first, or go and stay in that area for at least a couple of weeks before you commit yourself to anything, to get to the idea of what it's like. There might be a school nearby where they all turn out here, as they do at 2 o'clock, and you've got all the mums parking on the pavement right outside your house, things like that you wouldn't really know if you're just going to jump in and buy straight away.
I think the thing is, back home, if you kind of you don't really like the area that you've moved to, you can just sell your house and move. Although it's stressful and it's got so much paperwork attached to it, but just selling and moving when you're in Spain and you've got those complications of the language barriers and the different legislation and things like that affect you moving, you have to get it right first time, really. So yeah, I think that's a really good tip, actually, to be able to rent. So you purchased the house. You're still living there now. I get a little bit of a suspicion that you don't.
I moved when I first moved here. I lived in a place called Roquetas de Mar, very touristy place by the beach, very nice. Then I met my Spanish wife, and before we were married, we moved into a flat a little bit further along the road, still nearer towards the Almeria airport. And then 2 years ago, I decided that I didn't want to live in an apartment anymore. I sold my place, she sold her place, and we bought a plot of land in Almeria, and we've almost finished building a 4-bedroom house here, which has been quite an adventure. And with all the tips and advice I can give people on that's another story altogether. But yeah, building a house here, that's a big adventure in Spain with all the bureaucracy and paperwork.
Building a house is an adventure anywhere, David, must admit. Right, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions about that shortly. First up, though, we're going to stop and play some Aha. You're tuned to Total Star, and we're talking to David Wright about his experiences of living and moving to Spain. So, David, building a house is a big challenge, but is it something that you'd recommend for everybody to do?
Well, for me personally, being a builder is something I've always wanted to do back in the UK, but never could really afford to do it. And we did see properties here we wanted to move straight into, which was quite appealing. But at the back of my mind, I thought, this is my last chance, being 58 years old as I was when I bought the land, it's now or never. So we bought a plot of land, I designed the house, and pretty much single-handedly, my wife and I have built the house ourselves, full-time job.
That's pretty good going, isn't it? This, I guess, with you being retired, you've got all the time in the world that you can do it, and the lovely weather as well. So you're not going to have any rain days, are you?
Well, it does rain here, and actually we've had the last 3 days of continuous rain, which has been a bit of a nightmare. But the forecast now today it was overcast, but from now on it's 22 degrees for the rest of the week, and I think that's probably the same for the rest of the year now. So good weather ahead, thank God.
That'd be good, so you can get it all finished.
Yeah, still got a lot to do, and I'm retired. Technically, I'm retired early, but I don't think I'll ever be finished at the house. There's always something to do here, and it's a never-ending job, So it's something I like doing, and it keeps me going,
There is that saying that a builder's house is never finished.
Yeah, that's for sure. Every time I go in another room, my wife says, "Can you put some shelves up here? I want a wardrobe there." So it's going.
Oh, can you just make this alteration to this door, or yeah? I can imagine your to-do list at home is quite substantial. So thank you for talking to us today. You've got 2 books. They're on Amazon. Just to remind people, Moving to Spain and Finding Work in Spain.
Yeah, they're both out on Amazon now, and my website for that is livinginspainbooks.com, where you can get access to both the books. And as I say, the free download if people really can't afford to buy the books. They're not out to make big money or anything. It's just to get the info out there. But people can download the books for free on some Kindle devices.
And it's just a case of getting your advice out there and helping people, really, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of negativity out there on the internet at the moment, what with everything going on. And I like to try and help and encourage people to follow their dreams rather than put them off.
And Coast to Coast magazine, I believe that they find out who you are and they want to share your tips too.
Yeah, Coast to Coast magazine are going to run a featured article called the Living in Spain series every month, and I'm going to be putting up extracts from both of the books to be published there, put the highlights, the best tips and advice, which is going to be in the magazine every month.
And you've got a podcast and you've got a blog. That's BritishExpatsInSpain.com.
That is, yeah, all the same name, and it's on Apple Podcasts and also on Spotify. Living in Spain with David Wright. It's quite easy to find.
Excellent, that's great. So thank you very much for sharing your tips with us today, David.
Thanks for having me, James.